My name is Young Kim, and I'm a professor at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm also the principal investigator of Project Dual. Today, I'm really happy to introduce Emma Xiao, who is our RA of the month. She is our RA of the month for November 2025. We selected Emma Xiao because of her outstanding work on our project on so many different capacities. Emma started with our team on, I believe it was daily calls team, if I'm not mistaken. And then she moved on to our literature review team, where she coded, I think at this point, probably thousands of articles, but we collectively we coded thousands of articles, and I believe Emma probably coded a couple of hundred on her own. And both of the meta-analyses or systematic review projects Emma resulted in two scientific publications in a really good top-tier journal in our field. And then now Emma is in charge of our social media team for Project Dual. So because of the outstanding work and being so responsive and doing such a great job and being so critical when doing the literature review and making sure our social media team is active and getting posts out there in a timely manner, we are honoring Emma with November 2025 RA of the Month. So we are going to learn a little bit more about Emma Xiao and see what she's been up to and where she comes from, so we can learn more about her excellent work as a student at UT and also on the project. So Emma, why don't you tell us more about your major and your current graduation date?
Yeah, so I am a business analytics major. I originally started out as neuroscience, but I decided to switch my path because I saw McCombs had more to offer than just academics because they had a lot of networking events. And personally, I'm a very shy person, and I thought those events would help me get out there. But I've always had a passion for science, so I decided to stick with the healthcare innovation and information minor here at McCombs. And I will be graduating in May of 2026.
Wow. And how did you get to UT? So this question is sort of more like just to understand your background, where you grew up, and if UT was always the school you wanted to go to, but maybe it wasn't. If you could just tell us how you got to UT Austin.
Yeah, so I'm from Katy, Texas. It's a small suburb in Houston. And I personally did want to get out of Texas at first. And so I was stuck between UT and NYU. But for me personally, I wanted to do medicine. And it just seemed more feasible to go to a state school, get all my prereqs done, and then go somewhere else or stay in Texas for medical school. So that's why I ended up staying in state here at UT. And there was a lot of time ahead of me, so it was nice to stay at home close to my family. And also, it was better for my financial state, as like in-state tuition is a lot better than out-of-state tuition. And lastly, Austin's a great place for medical experience. We have Del Seton, Ascension, all like great hospitals around the Austin UT area.
Yeah, right. So many great ways to like doctor shadow, even research opportunities and things like that. Okay, so tell me how, I know when you first started my project, it was Project Seed. And I'm curious, how did you hear about the project and what made you decide to join at that time?
I actually found Dr. Kim off Eureka. I think it was an old study that she was still doing about Chinese adolescent Americans. And I
Oh,
had messaged about that because I personally related to it. So that's why I ended up going with Project Seed, and now it's Project Dual.
oh, I see, I see. So I guess when you contacted me, you heard us through Project Eureka, and then I probably told you at the time my Chinese American study wasn't active at the time. And I think and so you're saying you ended up joining Project C because my Chinese American project wasn't active.
Yes.
And then once we transitioned to Project Dual, because we finished data collection project for Project Seed, what made you want to stay on past that, into the transition?
I think I had a great time just learning a lot about research. There was more to just like collecting data and like formulating with the scientific reasoning. I saw how, like, for example, Project Seed had, or now Project Dual also has like a social media team and also teams to send out information and communication along with like all the RAs and like all the students within the project. There's just so much more in like a project team besides like the research itself, which I thought was really interesting and I didn't really see in other labs.
Okay, so you're saying the unique thing was sort of like our dissemination efforts of the research we're doing?
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot more outside of just research, but also just like learning how to interact with people my age and also a professor and just like seeing the logistics of a whole lab together.
Oh, I see, I see. So I know I kind of did a recap of all the different roles that you did as a research assistant, but maybe we can hear from your perspective of, what did you do or what do you do as a research assistant on Project Dual?
Yeah, so I started off my freshman year on a daily surveys team, mostly just like checking and verifying that the data we were getting was correct and also we were collecting data. I thought that was a great introduction to just really get my hands wet with like what was going on in the project at the time. And then I did explore outside like the transcriptions, the home visits, and also the head of project. So I had a better understanding of what was going on likewise. And then I ended up transitioning to the literature review team because that was some area of research I've not explored, just like dealing with a lot of literature, all like the measures and all the variables we were interested in. And then lastly, now I'm staying with social media because I have a good understanding of the project and what we need to advertise and what people might be interested in. And also, since I've gained more in business, I can like help appeal with better ways to market the project and what people might be looking for.
So you've done so many different roles. I mean, and they are all so different too, you know? Do you feel like there's any one role that you like the best, or, each one had its, pluses and minuses?
Definitely each one had its plus and minuses. For example, the daily surveys team, it was more about coordinating with other research assistants, seeing how someone's shift earlier in the day mattered to someone's shift like later in the day. And then literature was obviously useful in like learning how to read research because that was something I wasn't familiar with before, but also how it's like relevant to writing a paper and like a literature review. And then social media is like besides like how are we supposed to tell people outside of our project what we're doing and how can we put it in simpler terms with someone who's not familiar with the project.
Okay. So, what do you think you like the most about being in Project Dual?
I I like sharing it with my friends because a lot of my friends are also in the project and it's nice to have people you're familiar with talk about the project and what's going on and how they find it interesting. And then also being able to work with like a professor pretty closely and like constantly like in communication with them. I know my friends in other labs barely work with their PI. So that's a unique experience that Project Dual offers like compared to other labs at here at UT.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So, I think most PIs typically would have their graduate student or their staff interact with the undergraduate students. Whereas, as you know, I like to interact with my undergraduate students directly. Sometimes I think it can be intimidating for the undergraduate students, but at the same time, it really helps in me getting to know you so that when I write a letter of recommendation for you, I know like how I interacted and what it was like working with you directly. And so I don't have to ask my staff what was it like working with Emma when I'm writing a letter of recommendation. So what new skills do you think you developed while being in Project Dual?
Definitely first time management. I remember my first year, basically, I had maybe like 5 hours of work every week or maybe more than that. And I had to balance that in between like classes, my swing schedule. And I was in charge of scheduling that myself. So I learned a lot of time management about myself and also with others, communicating with them when I'm available to schedule trainings with other trainers and other teams. And then the last thing, or like the second thing I learned was also leading. I think Project Duel was one of the first teams I like fully led on my own under somebody. And that was intimidating at first because I think I stepped up whenever I finished my sophomore year. So not too much experience, but I learned how to grow with like what I had and then being comfortable with like leading other people and telling them this is what's expected. And then also teaching them like how to be on the social media team, for example. And then the last thing skill I developed is definitely communication, just like being on top of what's going in and out of like the communication cycle, and also trying to respond timely, and also taking people's messages and like putting them into what's needed timely as well.
So after being on the project, so how long do you think you've been on the project now with me?
I started November of 2022, so it's almost 3 years, I
Oh,
think.
wow.
Yeah,
So how do you think your experience has changed your view or maybe not changed your view of research?
definitely it's changed that it's a lot more than just like the scientific method. Again, like there's obviously research is like the base of like having some idea, discovering it, and like trying to develop like anything you learned from like that time. But again, there's like teams, there's advertising, understanding the study, and then like the amount of time a whole study takes. Because whenever I first started college, I thought it was just like, oh, you have an idea, and then you're just gonna like collect some data and like write a report about it. But no, there's a lot more that goes into it.
Oh, I see. So you didn't realize all the different aspects that are needed to get the research done, that it's not just collecting the data and publishing. There's a lot of things in between.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And how do you think your experience at UT Austin changed as a result of being in Project Dual and Project Seed in the past?
I Again, I met definitely a lot of people in the lab also. Like I mentioned before that a lot of my friends are in the lab, but I would see like names on like trainings or like certain meetings here at Project Dual, and then I would see them in my class. I was like, "Oh, are you a part of Project Seed or Project Dual?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I am." So that's like a great conversation starter, and also like finding a different community and having like people like come together in like my classes, and it makes harder classes a lot easier because y'all have like something to talk about and y'all have like a shared common interest.
So you mean you'll just be in a class and you'll recognize the name that of a student that was on the project?
Yeah, it's definitely that. And then some of my student orgs, I've also recognized people from Project Dual.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then you'll be like, oh, I remember seeing that name, and then almost always they say they're in it or was in it, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Okay. Um, so I'm curious because also I want to congratulate you for getting into medical school. It is a huge feat, and I was so excited when you told me that you got in because I remembered writing your letter of recommendation over the summer. So I was so
Yes.
excited that you got in. I mean, it's such a, so many students tell me they want to join my project because they want to get research experience for medical school, but not everyone gets in like you did. And I'm just curious. And you had so many amazing experiences, while you were a student. What would your advice be? Do you think it's good to be working on a research project for 3 years? Because I saw you had doctor shadowing, you had worked at also as intern at PricewaterhouseCoopers and other places. What kind of advice would you have for aspiring medical students who are often joining my project to get experience they need to get to medical school? Because you achieved it.
I would definitely say your first few years, like try everything. I did try like other labs my freshman year, but I ended up staying with Project Dual or Project Seed at the time because it just resonated personally. Because for me, I do remember like reading instructions from my parents, and that's something that you can talk about. It's like you're not going to be passionate about something if you don't understand it. And then you also have to tell that to your admissions officers, like write it in your personal statement. So I would say like stick with a project that you can actually relate to. It's like something you can actually talk about. And also you can use basically explaining it to your friends. If you can explain it to your friends, it's something that you're interested in, something you really understand. So I guess the final word of advice is don't do something just for like the resume, but do it for you actually like care about it. It's something you want to talk about and show to the admissions committee at medical schools.
I see. So one thing I wanted to ask you is you did so many variety of things, the doctor shadowing, the research, and then the summer internships to, with the business analytics. and I kept, and not only that, you're also doing swimming and all of this, and I kept thinking, oh my God, how does Emma have time to do so many different things? And the other thing on top of that is you do it so well because, I remember when we were having, our literature review meetings, you had so many great insights into the literature review we were doing. And so I was just curious, like, what's your secret to balancing it all? But not just balancing it all, but also excelling at it.
Yeah, I would say swimming is definitely central to everything for me. It's definitely way outside like my professional and academic life. And for that, it's a great place to ground me because, for example, my daily, I would like go to classes, do something for Project Dual, and then I would go swim. And that's like where everything outside of swim just like melts away. So that would be like a great time for me to reset and just like think about like myself. And it helps with like your mental and physical health. And it just like, if you do everything academic and professional, you're going to get tired. So you need some like hobby or something outside of school to balance. And you have people that are also not in the same major, like same industry as you can talk to and like learn about what they're doing. So for example, I have a bunch of friends in engineering, which is something I'm not super familiar with, but I get to learn about what their classes are like and like how recruiting is going for them. So you learn a lot more also just like talking to other people, and you can bring like those perspectives into like your work and like how you act or how you speak with people. And that's like all those skills help you balance like a lot of variety of things.
Wow, that's great. And then, do you have any advice you would have for future research assistants who are going to join the project?
Um, I would say biggest piece of advice is definitely time management. It's very simple. Like you have to, there's so many things you're going to want to try out, but obviously you only have so many hours in a day. So you have to prioritize things. And I learned that a lot. It's like saying yes to everything kind of will tire you out. If you try to do like three labs at once, you're going to burn out. So my final word of advice is pick and choose what's important to you. Again, if your goal is to go into like any industry, you have to be able to talk about what you're passionate about. So prioritizing your time to what you think will help you the best is going to be a lot better than just like trying to do everything all at once.
I see. Um, so I mean, I know you just got into medical school, so you're planning to go to medical school, but after medical school, do you see yourself becoming, a physician? I'm just so curious because you also have the business background. And so how you plan to, bring that together because of the business analytics, and so I know a lot of business majors also, go to medical school, but I was curious about what you plan to do with the business background together with the medical training you will get now that you're going to go to medical school next fall.
I think my goal after medical school is to become a physician. I've always just kind of had the personality. I just love working with patients, learning about them, helping them through a total care plan, and like just seeing that smile like on their face, helping someone with their health is something you can't really do in business. Like you have a client, you help them with like their profits, but it's not the same as helping a patient with their health and giving them something to like continue their life with. However, there are like a lot of, I wouldn't say issues, but challenges in healthcare that I've seen after working as a medical assistant, doing some consulting with healthcare companies. After having experience as a physician, doing some practice, I would someday like to go back into healthcare consulting and bring my background that I had once in consulting, but also a perspective as a physician on like what we can do to solve these challenges.
So do you think you'll want to have your own business or you think you want to just work for a company or what are you thinking?
I honestly might work for a company. I know there's some consulting firms out there who are actually looking for physicians. So I would love to be like part of a team to help with some kind of projects like that.
Okay, sounds good. And do you have any questions for me that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, so I mentioned before, like Project Dual had a lot of teams, a lot of different moving parts with many students. So how are you able to keep track of all the students and their contributions?
Yeah, it's not easy because as you know, there's so many students on the project, right? And then you've seen, the list of students on the project too. There's many things I do. I use a planner, electronic planner, where I keep track of different teams I have to keep track of. And then I also have team leads who I'm often, tagging to ask, the status on things. So I'm sure, because I ask you after every other week, you lead your team meeting, and I ask you who was present and who came and what's the next steps. So almost for every team, like we have the daily calls team, and sometimes not only do I have them send me reports, I also join those meetings too. And then I also have a transcription team, and then I also have a scheduling team. But then it seems like I'm honestly constantly in meetings. Pretty much my whole day is kind of managing the project, as you could probably tell, because I respond so quickly to your messages, right? So it's hard because there's many students and each student has different needs. And every student, I try to either have them be under a team lead so that I can get progress on their reports, or I'm directly supervising them. So like, for example, you as a team lead, I am supervising directly. And other times I would communicate with the team lead who have students who are working under them as well. But it's not easy because there's always something that goes wrong. Like, for example, when we were doing home visits, there's, car trouble. So, we would go drive to the family's home, but then you never know when, you have a flat tire. I mean, we've had emergencies like that, or people committed to doing something that day. For example, students were supposed to go to a school to do a presentation or whatnot, but then they wake up feeling sick, and then, we have to find someone in the last minute. So often I spend quite a lot of time just trying to troubleshoot, emergency troubleshooting. But really having great team leaders like yourself helps a lot. And also having a calendar, and every single day I have different team leads who are supposed to send me different things. So like on a Sunday, I'm expecting these reports. Mondays, I'm expecting these reports. Tuesday, when it's like kind of all spread out. And because I've been running the project so long, and I know, because I created all the protocols and I created the workflow of how everything works, it's almost intuitive. And in some cases, I may not have to write it down, because it's kind of like, when you get settled into a semester, Monday I have to go to this class, that class, I have a break in between here, and that's when I have to get something done, right? So it's kind of like that. So my project, because I've been running it for 10 plus years, I have a very intimate knowledge of how everything is set up, because I set it up that way. So it's kind of like a checklist of my mind of how I do it. So I'm curious, what do you think about my answer? Does that surprise you, or I'm curious to hear your thoughts?
No, I think that's super impressive because you respond so fast to my messages sometimes. It's a little scary because, like, personally, me, when I get text messages, I like cannot respond sometimes because I'm doing something or I'm like in class. But it's it like baffles me every time if I send you a little message, you always like respond back immediately. I honestly respect that because you have so much to manage.
Yeah, but because the reason why I do it is I know that if I don't respond right then and there, I probably will never get to it. So it's better to respond. Very rarely do I not respond, but if you don't get a response, you can always ask me again and I'll respond to you. No matter how small the question is, I always respond.
No, that's good.
So, was there anything else you wanted to bring up, we didn't touch on?
No, I think I'm good. I had a great time sharing my experience.
Yeah, I was so astounded to hear that you were on my project now for 3 years, and
I know.
I had no idea that you were trying out so many different labs, and I feel so honored that you stayed with my project over the years, and it's been really incredible to watch you grow into different roles, and I think it's great that you got to try so many different roles, right? Because that's how you learn, and that's how you see the multiple sides of doing the research project, is seeing all the different roles we have to offer. So.
Yeah, for sure. It was so enriching, and I honestly, like, I would if I did this again, I would choose this project 100%.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much. Do you have any departing words for anyone listening?
I would definitely just recommend doing this project for anyone, no matter what major you are. I feel like you can learn anything.
That's true. We do have majors from engineering to biology to psychology to human development. We even had a textile student work on our project too. Yeah, I feel like I've had so many different majors. So thank you, Emma. It's been such a pleasure to have a conversation with you, and I feel so privileged to work with you. And I'm so happy to feature you as our November 2025 Research Assistant of the Month for Project Dual. Thank you so much.
Likewise, thank you.